The sleek satin interior of the limousine felt impossibly cool against my palms as I fingers flicked the velvet-lined box resting on my lap. The diamond ring inside caught the LED strip lights overhead, scattering shards of light across the leather seat like tiny icebergs. I closed my eyes for a moment, inhaling the faint scent of jasmine from the floral arrangement on the floor. It should have felt celebratory, but instead I tasted tension, like the metallic tang of a freshly minted coin. My name is Graham Whitaker, and I'm the kind of man who, for better or worse, took "go big or go home" as a personal motto. At 45, I've built a software consultancy from a two-person garage operation into a sleek outfit that prints money faster than I can deposit it. I'm the guy who got congratulated for making my 30th wedding anniversary trip to Bora Bora feel seamless. Private yacht, sunset champagne, the whole 9 yards. But tonight, as I watched the ring's facets catching the light, I felt the old thrill in my chest, tinged with a pinch of dread. You see, earlier this evening, over a plate of caviar and sous vide steak at our favorite Michelin-starred restaurant, my wife, Olivia, had looked across the table with those exacting gray eyes and laid down the gauntlet. "For this baby," she said, tapping my champagne flute, "I expect a push present that matches what I'm giving up. $50,000 at least. And I want something that makes me feel like a queen." Her words rang in my ears like a gaudy chandelier slipping from the ceiling. $50,000. On a push present. For delivering our second child. I'd already commissioned a custom-designed necklace encrusted with sapphires and diamonds. My best jeweler had assured me no one in New York would have anything quite like it. Yet even as the jeweler's assistant had slid that velvet box into my hands, I felt the pull of a different truth. We'd been drifting for months, polite in our routines, forgiving each other's little lapses but never quite finding the spark that made us laugh like teenagers at 2 a.m. anymore. I took a breath and remembered the first time I'd met Olivia. She'd been wearing muddy hiking boots and a paint-splattered t-shirt, her hair up in a messy knot because she'd been elbow-deep in a mural project. I'd nearly tripped over her ladder on my way to the subway, but she'd flashed me a grin that split her face open, like sunrise on an otherwise drab morning. She was unpredictable, passionate, alive. That woman didn't ask for diamonds, she asked for grand adventures and late-night conversations. Yet somewhere between venture capital pitches and PDA meetings, we'd traded spontaneity for schedules, candid affection for carefully curated Instagram moments. Her demand tonight was less about the money and more about the chasm that had grown between us. Still, I couldn't hand her a box of feelings. I'd tried. I'd bought the ring. I reached into the plush seat pocket and pulled out a crisp white envelope. Instructions from Lily and Rose Fine Jewelry, name embossed in calligraphy. It detailed the weight of the gold, the clarity grade of each stone, and the leather-lined travel case. I read through the specs once, twice. They were perfect. Too perfect. Opulent. Extravagant. But in that moment, extravagance felt hollow. I snapped the lid shut, its click echoing like the final note of a symphony, and slipped the box back into my inner jacket pocket. I unrolled the envelope and set it face down beside me. It would wait. Because tonight success wouldn't be measured in carats or dollar signs. It would be measured in truth. I looked out the tinted window at the city lights, Brooklyn brownstones giving way to the jagged skyline of Manhattan. Traffic hummed along the FDR Drive below, like life happening at a pace I no longer recognized. In the rearview mirror, I glimpsed my reflection, hair just starting to silver at the temples, the corners of creases around my eyes betraying more laughter lines than I'd care to admit. I pressed my fingertips into my temples and closed my eyes, recalling how she and I had first danced in our living room to some scratchy vinyl record, her bare feet patting against my socks, her head thrown back in delight. A plan began to form, gentle but insistent. I imagined telling her that for one entire month, no spending beyond necessities. No extravagant dinners. No luxury spa appointments. No designer diapers or limited edition strollers. Instead, we'd trade splurges for moments, late-night pizza in the living room, foot rubs while we watched old movies, unplanned bike rides along the Hudson, crossword puzzles over coffee. We'd speak each other's love languages, words of affirmation in morning notes left on her pillow, quality time in genuine, undistracted togetherness, acts of service in doing the dishes without a word. I leaned back, the car's leather molding to my shoulders like a cocoon. My heartbeat slowed. I knew it sounded almost absurd, this sacrilegious pull against the tide of modern expectations. But I also knew it was exactly what we needed to rediscover the real reason we'd chosen each other in the first place. By the time we arrived at our brownstone, the city's night chorus had shifted to the lullaby of honking horns and distant sirens. The driver pulled to the curb, and I climbed out, the velvet box still tucked safely away. I walked up the stoop, hand on the iron railing, and saw the glow of our foyer light through the stained glass window. Inside, I'd find Olivia perched on the couch, her legs curled beneath her, probably scrolling through her phone, another habit I planned to break. She'd look up, expectant, maybe pleased by the ring. Instead, I'd pull her into my arms and say, "Let's give each other something better than jewelry. Let's give each other ourselves." And as I reached for the doorknob, I smiled to myself. Because tonight marked not only the end of opulence as obligation, but the quiet beginning of real connection. A month of no spending, and a lifetime of rediscovered love. The morning light spilled through our kitchen window like an uninvited guest, and I found Olivia already there, nursing a mug of Earl Grey. She wore one of my old flannel shirts, oversized and soft, her hair pulled up in a loose topknot. I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. "Morning," I said, sliding into the chair across from her. She glanced up, eyebrows arched. "Morning. Where's the ring?" I took a breath. "I wanted to give it to you tonight as planned. But..." I paused, letting that word hang between us like a bookmark. "But..." she prompted, stirring her tea. "But instead I thought we could try something different." I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. Her eyes flickered with curiosity, and maybe a hint of dread. "A month of no spending," I said, as though announcing a spa retreat rather than a budget constraint. "No gourmet takeout, no last-minute online splurges, no..." I waved my hand theatrically at the avocado toast cookbook perched on the counter. "No avocado toast." She blinked at me. "You're serious?" "Completely." I grinned. "In exchange, we focus on each other. Real love languages, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service." She leaned back, studying me. For a moment I thought I saw a smile tug at her lips, but then she sighed. "I suppose it can't hurt." "Suppose?" I raised an eyebrow. "Fine," she said, rolling her eyes in mock exasperation. "But if you slip up, say, buy yourself one of those ridiculous espresso machines you've been ogling, you owe me a push present 3 times the value." I laughed, relieved. "Deal." And that was how day one of our no spending month began. By lunchtime, I'd already performed 3 acts of service. First, I emptied the dishwasher, even though I'm pretty sure I broke at least 1 wine glass in the process. Then I drove to pick up Olivia's dry cleaning, no valet service allowed. Finally, I surprised her by tackling the mountain of mail cluttering the hall table. Among the bills and flyers, I found the jeweler's invoice, and tossed it into the recycling bin without a second thought. That evening, instead of our usual sushi delivery, I rummaged through the pantry and cobbled together a pasta alla whatever's left. Garlic, olive oil, half a jar of sun-dried tomatoes, and a tin of tuna became an improbably delicious dinner. We ate by candlelight, purchased 6 months ago, still pristine, and I watched her lean back with a contented sigh. "Not bad," she said, twirling spaghetti. "Next time, add capers." I jotted that down in my mental notebook. Capers, good. Caviar, bad. Day 8, the first real test. My sister called to invite us on a weekend getaway to her lake house, spa treatments included. The cabana waiting area would boast cucumber-infused water and heated stone lounges. The whole thing sounded like an ode to unnecessary luxuries. Olivia looked at me expectantly, tapping her foot. "I'm not sure," I said, suppressing a wince. "Would that count as spending?" She mused, running a finger along her coffee mug's rim. We aren't paying for it, but we'd be enjoying paid services. I groaned. This rule is punishingly ambiguous. She laughed, a rare, genuine sound, and said, Let's call it a family gift. We'll go, but no spa treatments. I saluted her with my mug. Fair enough. We spent the weekend hiking around the lake, cooking pancakes on the cabin's griddle, and playing Scrabble in flannel pajamas. No fancy massages, no pressure washing the dock. Just crisp air, coffee brewing on the stove, and Olivia's triumphant bingo when she beat me with the word quokka. I had no idea it was a word. Day 15, our halfway milestone. I had planned a scavenger hunt around the city, scavenging free samples from farmers' markets, riding the ferry at sunset, and ending with a visit to the botanical gardens, free on Wednesdays. I handed her a crumpled list of clues. She laughed so hard at the second clue, find the man juggling pineapples, that she nearly dropped it. That night, we lay on a blanket in the garden, watching the city lights wink on like distant fireflies. Olivia snuggled close. I forgot how fun this was, she murmured. But will it work? I kissed her temple. I think we're remembering how we fell in love. She smiled sleepily. Okay, but if you don't give me the ring tomorrow, I'll consider it payback. I pretended to shiver. Oof, I tremble at this threat. Day 21. Our quartz-pointed resolve shattered by grocery store circumstances. We'd planned a no-spend date night, charcuterie on the couch, but realized we were out of cheese. I stood in the dairy aisle, chewing my lip. Grab the cheddar, Olivia said, cool as ever. I'll balance the budget elsewhere. I shot her a grateful grin. You're a genius. I snagged a modest block and, at home, devoured it with apple slices and honey. She laughed at my delight and said, See? We don't need a sommelier. Even a supermarket cheddar can be romantic. I nodded solemnly. Next time, we pair it with canned olives. Day 28. I woke before dawn to write her a letter, 31 Reasons I Love Her, on vintage stationery saved for something special. By the time she surfaced, the house smelled of fresh coffee and muffins, homemade, of course. I handed her the envelope. She read each line aloud, her voice cracking on number 8. For the way you forgive my obsessiveness. When she reached the end, tears shimmered in her eyes. That, she whispered, is better than $50,000. I slipped an arm around her and said, I think it's time to talk about that ring. She glanced at the envelope, then up at me. Yes? I stood, walked to my study, and returned with the velvet box. But I didn't open it. I held it between us. This ring, I said, voice gentle, is beautiful. But right now, it symbolizes how far we drifted. Let's put it here, on the mantel, and promise that from today on, we speak these love languages first. And if our next push present is still a ring, it'll be because we've earned it together. She smiled, real, unguarded. Deal. I closed the box and set it beside the letters. In that moment, I felt richer than I ever had at a gala. The tension that sparkled like diamonds had melted away, replaced by something warmer. And as we walked hand in hand to the window to watch the last candles burn low, I knew this month had been the true gift. I woke to sunlight slanting through our bedroom blinds and the soft, contented sound of Olivia's breathing beside me. The ring box sat on the bedside table, unopened, its velvet lid closed as if in quiet solidarity. I reached out and tapped it, a private reminder of the promise we'd made. Then I turned to her, studying the curve of her cheek and the way her lashes cast feathery shadows on her skin. My name is Graham Whitaker, and at 45, I've learned that grand gestures can fall flat if the groundwork isn't solid. Over the past 3 weeks, we'd traded billable hours for board games, dinner deliveries for pasta experiments, and high-priced therapists for honest conversations in our living room. We'd surfaced feelings we didn't even realize we'd buried, resentments about missed anniversaries, fears about financial stability, and even lingering anxieties about parenthood. It was messy, raw, and utterly transformative. This morning, I slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen, humming a tune I hadn't heard in years, something off a scratched CD of 80s love songs. I flicked on the kettle and measured tea leaves into the French press. Then I opened the pantry and grabbed a handful of coffee beans, the same modest roast we'd settled on during our no-spending month. As the aroma filled the air, I thought about how our little experiment had resurrected laughter and empathy in our home. Olivia emerged in a faded t-shirt that read, "Mom Life." Her hair tousled in that way that made me think of storm clouds just after they'd passed. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me with that familiar blend of amusement and fond exasperation. "Morning, Chef," she said. "Morning, love," I replied, handing her a mug. "Coffee or tea?" She took a sip and crinkled her nose. "Tea. I'm branching out." We sat at the table in companionable silence, the only soundtrack our synchronized sipping. Then she set down her mug and studied me. "So, about the next month?" I arched an eyebrow. "Going for round 2?" She grinned, eyes alight. "Maybe. I was thinking we've proven our point. Love doesn't need a credit card. But I miss the spontaneity. What if we plan one splurge date night a month?" I considered it. A single indulgence amidst simplicity. It sounded like the perfect balance. "Okay," I said. "One splurge. But on one condition." "Which is?" "That we each choose the splurge for the other blind." Her eyes widened. "Blind? Meaning you choose something for me without me knowing, and I pick something for you. No previews, no hints, just surprise." She tapped her chin theatrically. "Deal. But let's make it a team event, something we both enjoy, even if chosen separately." I raised my mug in a toast. To blind dates with each other. That afternoon, I slipped away to my study and reopened the sentimental folder of our no-spending letters, the 31 reasons I loved her. I reread them, smiling at my own earnestness. Then I drafted a new list. 31 adventures to have together. From cook pie outdoors to stargaze at the planetarium. Each item was inexpensive but rich in promise. I printed it, folded it into an envelope, and addressed it to Olivia, visionary of fun. Meanwhile, Olivia busied herself arranging our living room for the blind date reveal. She draped fairy lights across the bookcase, set up a record player, and lined up a row of small wrapped boxes on the coffee table. Each box bore a tiny label. A, B, C, and so on, 31 in total. I nodded in approval when I saw them, sensing the playful excitement crackling in the air. We reconvened at twilight, each holding our envelope. She tucked hers into my hands, and I did the same. Then we settled on the couch, the first box between us. "Ready?" she asked, her voice soft. I nodded, trying to appear nonchalant. She peeled back the tape-on box A, and retrieved a small card. She read aloud. "Take a dance lesson, waltz, salsa, or whatever you choose." She looked up at me, eyes gleaming. "My splurge for you." My pulse quickened. "A dance lesson?" I echoed, already imagining us stumbling through footwork in a dimly lit studio, our laughter echoing off the mirrors. "I love it." Then I reached for box B, my choice for her. Inside was a voucher I'd printed. Private paint and sip class for 2. Her brow furrowed for a second. A paint and sip evening on a quaint rooftop, brushes in hand, the city skyline behind us. "You did this?" she murmured, touching the paper gently. I shrugged, grinning. "Surprise." She leaned in and kissed my cheek. "Best month ever." The next morning, our world expanded again. We wandered into a dance studio bathed in golden light, where an instructor guided us through basic steps. I stepped on her toes twice, but she laughed, her head thrown back in perfect echo of that first time I met her. Later, we sipped cheap wine and held our brushes against canvases sticky with acrylics, half-finished landscapes taking shape beneath our fingers. Those days blurred into weeks, each blind date box unlocking a new adventure. We climbed a lighthouse at dawn, held hands on a tandem bike, and built a blanket fort in the living room just to watch bad sci-fi movies. We revisited old haunts, our first apartment, the park where I'd proposed, and saw them through fresh eyes, as though they were scenes in a film starring us. One evening, we found ourselves back at the brownstone stoop where I'd first vowed a month without spending. Olivia paused mid-step, turning to me. "You know," she said, "I almost forgot why I asked for that ring in the first place." I swallowed, heart tight. "Because you wanted to feel loved?" "Because I thought love was diamonds and status," she admitted, shoulders sagging. "I was insecure." I gently took her hand. "I get it. But love is messy and loud and sometimes awkward, and it's also this." I swept my arm around us, the worn bricks of our home, the glow of lamplight through the window, and her. She smiled, eyes shining. "Promise me something?" "Anything. Let's never stop choosing each other, whether it's a ring, a dance lesson, or a blank canvas." I drew her into my arms. "I promise." We stood there, city sounds humming around us, two people rediscovering each other in miniature adventures. And in that pause, between the past we'd shed and the future we were crafting, I felt an unfamiliar flutter, anticipation, vulnerability, and the delicious possibility of what came next. As I leaned down to kiss her, my phone buzzed in my pocket, an alert that our bank account balance had dipped slightly, some minor subscription we'd forgotten to cancel. I pulled it out and showed her. "Oops." She laughed, the sound like music. "Looks like the universe wants to remind us money still exists." I slipped my hand into hers and led her up the stoop. "Then let's remind the universe we don't need it to be happy." Together, we closed the door behind us, stepping into the next chapter. The scent of rain on hot asphalt pulled me awake before my alarm. I rolled over and saw Olivia still sleeping, curled into her pillow like an artful sculpture. For a heartbeat, I felt the warmth of our blind date adventures, then my chest tightened. Today was the day I was supposed to drop her off at her prenatal checkup and then head to the office for a quick status meeting. Instead, I found myself gripping the steering wheel in the driveway, heart thumping with a different kind of anticipation. I'd discovered the truth 3 nights ago. My pulse still quickened at the memory of that slack-jawed moment. I was sorting through the mail, a mixture of bills, postcards from family, and a thin manila envelope addressed to Olivia Whitaker. I didn't recognize the return address. Curiosity won over etiquette, and I slid the tab open. Inside was a glossy photo, Olivia in mid-laugh, arm wrapped around a man at some rooftop bar. His face was turned away, but the way her head tilted into his shoulder revealed every bit of intimacy I'd thought reserved for me. Beneath the photo, in neat script, was a date. June 12th. That was last week, the day we celebrated our halfway point with the farmer's market scavenger hunt. A note fell out. "Can't wait to see you again." I froze, chest constricting. My first thought was that it had to be some mistake, maybe a friend's prank, or a promotional mailer disguised as a love letter. But Olivia's phone had buzzed that very evening with a text from an unfamiliar number. And the night I found the envelope, she'd been unusually distant, offering half-hearted smiles instead of her usual sparkle. For 24 hours I replayed every moment, the nervous way she checked her phone before our paint-and-sip session, the whispered phone call she'd taken in the bathroom during our lighthouse dawn climb, the sudden chapter-ending sigh the first time I'd slipped the scavenger hunt clue into her hand. None of it was concrete proof, just a slow unraveling of trust. I decided I needed answers, and ammunition. Last Friday, while she slept, I logged into her laptop under the guise of updating our password manager. I sifted through her email drafts and messaging apps, careful to leave no trace. There it was, screenshots of flirty exchanges with a client from her interior design side gig, compliments about her radiant glow, and invites to late-night coffees. They'd arranged 2 meetings in the past week, both scheduled during the no-spend month. One of them was the rooftop bar photo date. I felt a quiet fury rise in me, but I didn't lash out. I was too old for that. Instead, I cataloged everything: dates, times, snippets of messages, and, most important, the photo itself. In the digital folder I created, I labeled each file with care. Evidence_1, Evidence_2, evidence_3. It felt clinical, but I needed a clear head if I was going to respond instead of react. I watched Olivia's back recede as she hopped into the car that morning, cheerful in her mom life shirt with a tote bag slung over her shoulder. "Have a good meeting," she said, pressing a kiss to my cheek. "Thanks. You too, sweetheart," I replied. My voice was steady. Inside, I was drafting the next steps. By midday, I'd positioned myself at a cafe across the street from her appointment. I ordered an espresso, no spending restrictions during investigative recon, and kept my eyes glued to the entrance. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, a man in a crisp linen shirt appeared, scanning the crowd until he spotted her. They exchanged a brief, intense hug before slipping inside together. I snapped a photo through the rain-spotted window and sent it to my secure folder. Every new piece of evidence felt like forging a key to unlock my own sense of justice. That afternoon, I sat in my study, our boundaries document pinned above my desk, and let the subtle humor that had carried me through the no-spend month resurface. This was the clumsiest affair I'd ever heard of: weekend rendezvous, coffee runs, poorly disguised rooftop selfies. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. And then I realized something vital. If I confronted her now, she'd put on a show of remorse, maybe even spin it as a mid-pregnancy lapse. And I'd be left looking like the jealous husband. No, this needed to be more precise. I would collect every fragment of proof until the story was undeniable: a photo album of betrayal, a timeline of secret meetings, the messages that proved it. Then I would present it to her in a way that left no room for excuses, ideally in front of everyone we knew: family, friends, our neighborhood book club, even my entire office. She'd demanded spectacle with her push present. I would give her the full theater of her own undoing. I drafted my plan on a fresh page. Compile evidence dossier. High-resolution prints of the rooftop photo, screenshots of messages, a timeline on glossy cardstock. Select venue. Our annual summer barbecue next Saturday. Plenty of witnesses, casual dress, and a built-in crowd. Presentation style. Borrow my projector for a slideshow. Title it Love Languages, a Case Study in Betrayal. Conclusion. Offer her the ring box, now empty, and a card that read, "Your push present, the truth." My pulse quickened as I listed each step. Revenge, I reminded myself, wasn't about cruelty. It was about restoring balance. I wouldn't yell or curse. I would be calmly devastating, the same way I'd ended our opulent routines with a quiet month of real connection. That evening, Olivia came home singing off-tune to some pop song on the radio. She eyed me in the doorway, expecting a warm greeting. Instead, I nodded curtly and went back to my study. She sensed the shift and followed me. "Everything okay?" she asked. I looked up from my laptop at her. For a moment, I almost caved, her worried expression tugging at the man who loved her. But I steeled myself. "I have something to show you," I said, closing the laptop with deliberate slowness. She frowned. "What?" But I held up a finger. "Not yet." I stood and walked over to the bookshelf, where the ring box waited unopened. I picked it up and placed it on my desk next to my printed slideshow outline. She came closer, arms folded. "Graham, what's going on?" I didn't answer, not right away. Instead, I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out the manila envelope. I held it out with both hands. "I think you deserve the full month's work," I said quietly. "All your evidence laid bare." Her eyes widened as I slid the envelope toward her. "What is this?" "This," I said, "is part of our love language, a language you've apparently been practicing behind my back." I tapped the envelope. "Open it." She lifted the flap and pulled out the rooftop bar photo. Recognition flashed across her face, then panic. I watched her pale in the harsh lamplight of my study. "I collected everything," I continued, "so there can be no denials." I gestured to the ring box. "And when we present this at the barbecue, next Saturday, everyone will see the same truth you tried to hide." Olivia's lips quivered. She looked at me, tears welling. Graham, please. It's okay, I said, voice soft but firm. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to reclaim what's mine. Our marriage deserves honesty. She sank into the armchair, clutching the photo. I stood over her, feeling the last of my old tenderness mingling with the new resolve. In that charged silence, I realized that my revenge would be as much about freeing myself as punishing her. I turned away and began assembling the presentation folders, one for each guest. The projector sat in its bag by the door, ready to cast the images that would shatter illusions. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the world washed and glistening. When I finished, I looked at my reflection in the darkened windowpane, a man in his mid-40s who'd started this journey wanting to save his marriage, only to discover it needed saving from herself. I exhaled slowly, feeling a hush settle over me. Saturday couldn't come soon enough. The day of the barbecue dawned bright and hot, the kind of summer afternoon that smells of grilling charcoal and laughter carried on a warm breeze. I arrived early to set up the projector and stack the evidence folders, one for each guest, in neat piles on the picnic table. The ring box lay empty beside my laptop, its velvet interior glaringly bare. Guests trickled in, neighbors with potato salad, my office team wearing Boss's Barbecue t-shirts in jest, and even my sister with her 2 kids. Olivia stood at the grill, flipping burgers and smiling, her posture still light, as though unaware of the performance to come. I approached her quietly. Hey, I said, handing her a glass of iced tea. Feeling ready? She met my eyes, steel beneath the warmth. As I'll ever be. I cleared my throat. Everyone, can I have your attention? Heads turned, the chatter softened. I clicked the projector on, its fan whirred, and a slide appeared on the screen behind me. Love Languages, a case study in betrayal. A hush fell. I began, voice calm. Thank you all for coming. Olivia and I wanted to celebrate family today, but I've discovered our definition of family needs some recalibrating. I hit the clicker. The rooftop bar photo filled the screen. This was taken last week, paid for with time she was supposed to spend at home. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Slide by slide, I presented the messages, the timeline, the excuses. Each image landed like a quiet bomb, her texts arranging secret meetups, the hotel receipt for the candid screenshots. I watched as color drained from her cheeks and her jaw clenched against tears. I spoke without embellishment. I loved her more than anything, but love built on lies is still a lie. When I finished, I offered the empty ring box to her. This was meant to symbolize my commitment to you. Now it symbolizes our fractured trust. I'm asking you, here and now, to choose, rebuild with honesty or walk away. Silence stretched. Then Olivia's voice, trembling. Graham. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. She looked at our friends and family, ashamed. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I exhaled, relief and sorrow mingling. Truth is the first step, I said softly. Rebuilding takes time. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small printed 31 Adventures list. Starting now, we earn every moment. She nodded, tears sliding free. We stood together as the barbecue resumed in awkward relief, friendships shifting but not breaking. I watched Olivia step forward, gathering guests into the fold, apologizing, laughing nervously, accepting plates of food. In that moment, I realized revenge had given way to reckoning, and reckoning to realignment. As the sun dipped low, I took her hand and led her to the dance floor we'd improvised under the patio string lights. No instructor, no steps rehearsed, just 2 imperfect people finding their rhythm again. And as we swayed, I felt warmth return to my chest. The empty ring box, the exposed truths, the public humiliation, they'd all been part of the messy work of love. Because true connection isn't born from perfection, but from the courage to lay down deceit and pick up honesty in its place. In that golden dusk, with neighbors cheering and music drifting, I knew we had a long road ahead, but we were finally on it together.